Hello friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Muhammad and today we're gonna be discussing something very interesting, which is gonna be Postgres with .NET. We're gonna be seeing how we can actually download and install Postgres into our developed machine. We're gonna see how we can actually configure it, and then we're gonna be creating a .NET application. We're gonna be utilizing Entity Framework Core in order for us to connect with this Postgres database. We're gonna see how we can create those tables, create relationships. We can see how we can actually manage our models, and then we're gonna be seeing how we can actually implement those models and changes from within our .NET application into our Postgres database. This is gonna be a very interesting video. We're gonna be actually learning a lot about databases as well. So grab your cup of coffee and let's get started. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to start by actually downloading all of the requirements, or basically all of the software that we're going to be needing in order for us to build our application, and basically explore Postgres and explore how we can actually utilize it, and exploring database relationships, so on and so forth. So in order for us to get started, what we need to do is we need to go to Postgres, or on Google you can just look for Postgres SQL, and basically from there what you can do is just click on downloads. And once you click on download, what you can do is you can choose your operating system. So I'm on a Mac. And then from here, what you can do is you can just basically download it, which version that you want. And it gives you the different ways that you can actually download. So you can download the installer. But because I'm utilizing Mac, I prefer to utilize Homebrew, so that's what I'm going to be doing to download it. If you don't know what Homebrew is, it's basically like a package manager that you can actually utilize to get a lot of different projects, a lot of different packages, a lot of different SDKs, all of them available through Homebrew. So if you want to download it, what you need to do is you need to go to google.com and just type Homebrew. And basically once you go to it, you're gonna find this page where it's gonna show you how what you need to do to install it. So all you need to do is just copy this, and let's open our terminal. Let me make my terminal bigger. And yeah, that should be fine. And what you need to do is just put the link there, click on enter. It's gonna ask for the password. And basically once you put the password, it's gonna ask you to start downloading and basically trying to do all of the installation for Homebrew. I have already installed it. What's gonna do right now is gonna try to update it to the latest version. So let's give this a minute, and it should be able to update. You can see it has updated to the latest version, but for you it might take a bit longer, because basically what's gonna do is gonna download the entire Homebrew. It's might ask you for your password a couple of times, but other than that, once all of it has been installed, basically you're gonna have a package manager available for you to utilize. So once that is done, the next step is for us to install Postgres, which is the initial one what we need to do. And we can see here that we can utilize Homebrew to install Postgres, and the way we do it is all we need to type is brew install Postgres SQL, and basically I have already installed this before, but we can see here once you do it from your side, it's gonna say that it has been installed. It's gonna take maybe roughly a few seconds to be installed, but after that's done, you should be all ready to go. So once we have installed Postgres, the next thing is basically we need to make sure that the Postgres service is running. So how do we do that? It's very simple. We need to put brew services start Postgres SQL, and then this basically will make sure that Postgres is going to be running. And we can see here that Postgres SQL has already started, which means that I have already started it before. If I want to stop Postgres, it's going to be almost the same. Instead of start, I need to put stop, and basically this will stop Postgres. I don't want to stop it right now, so but just in case you're wondering what's the command to stop Postgres, it's going to be basically the same. It's going to be basically opposite of what we currently have. So as we can see here, basically we went from start to stop. So once we have done that, the next step for us is we need to log into Postgres and create a user for us in order for us to start experimenting with it. So let's do this right now. We're going to be utilizing also the command prompt to do that. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to type Postgres, which is going to be the command that we're going to allow us to communicate with the Postgres database. And actually, sorry, it's going to be PSQL, and we're going to put Postgres. And basically, once I do that, we can see that my terminal has changed, and instead of starting with my name and the name of my Mac, and it basically has Postgres at the beginning. And the reason it has Postgres in the beginning, because in essence, I am now directly communicating with my database, or with my database server, and here where I can actually execute all of my database command. So now I have my Postgres available, or basically it's running. Let us do some initial setup. So basically what I want to do is I want to create a user. So that user I will be able to utilize inside the application that I'm going to be building in order for me to connect to the Postgres database. So basically, whenever I have my connection string, I need basically a username and a password, as well as the name of my database and the connection of my database, in order for me to be able to connect my web application or any application that I'm working on to my Postgres database. So how can I do that? It's very simple within Postgres. So all I need to do is type excuse me, some commands there, and I will be able to achieve this. So the first command is basically I need to create a role, and I'm gonna call this role Muhammad admin, or I can call it whatever I want. I'm gonna call it Muhammad, and basically I'm gonna put with login, and I'm gonna provide the password, and I'm gonna put my password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then I'm gonna put a semicolon. Do not forget the semicolon. If you don't put the semicolon, it will not work. So what am I doing here? Basically, I'm telling Postgres that you need to create a role, or basically a user in essence for me. Their name is gonna be Muhammad, and basically let's call it, because I already have a user called Muhammad, let's call it Muhammad admin. And basically this user is gonna have, let me put it all lowercase, and this user, they're gonna be allowed to log into my database server, and basically their password is gonna be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So as simple as that. So once I have done that, we can see that the role has been created, or the user has been created. Perfect. So the next step is basically I want to give privilege to this access, because currently my user, although they are able to log in, they don't have any privileges, or basically anything that they're not allowed to do anything within my database server, because all of their roles are basically none. They don't have any role. A user, when they are created inside Postgres, their roles are 0. So what I need to do is basically I need to allow them or grant them roles, so they are able to actually utilize my database server. So how can I assign role to them? It's very simple. All I need to do is type the word alter, because basically I'm changing this user to provide them with more access, and I'm gonna put role, basically that user, and I'm gonna specify which user I wanna alter. So it's gonna be Muhammad admin, and basically I'm gonna give them the role of create DB. And now basically Muhammad admin has the ability to create databases inside my Postgres, but that's not going to be enough. So what else I want to do? Basically I want to give this user full access to my services. So I want them to be able to create databases, drop databases, create users, change users, assign roles, remove roles, anything. So that's what I want to do right now. So similarly, I need to put alter, because I'm changing a role, or basically a user. I'm gonna put what the user is, and then basically what's going to be the super role that I want to give it is going to be super user. So it's going to be with super user, and basically whenever I give a super user here, basically I'm telling it whatever roles you have currently inside Postgres, please assign it to this user, because they are super users. And once I do that, we can see that the role has been altered, and basically Muhammad now has all of the roles that currently Postgres provides. So once I have created this, the next step is I want to create a database. And what we're going to be doing right now, we're going to be creating a empty database, and then we're going to go through to draw.io, where we're going to be actually designing that database there, and basically that way we actually know what are we going to be seeing, and basically we're going to visually represent the database structure that we want, and then we're going to go into building it. So first of all is in order for us to create a database, again, it's gonna be the commands are very simple. We're gonna put create and database, and what are we gonna give the database a name? We can give it sample f1 db. anything that we want. And we can see here that our database has been created successfully. And now what we need to do is we need to grant Muhammad access, or the user that we have, Muhammad admin, access for them to actually alter the database and basically have the ability to modify that database and do whatever they want with it. How can I do this? Grant connect on database. We called it sample f1 db to Muhammad. So now what am I giving? I'm granting Muhammad the access to actually connect to this database and basically to utilize it and connect to it. And in essence, that's all what we need to do right now from within our Postgres. That's going to be the main thing that we're going to be covering inside this terminal when it comes to setting up Postgres and basically setting up the database. Later on, we're going to be utilizing Entity Framework Core in order for us to create the tables, to create the relationships, in order for us to add data, so on and so forth. All of that's going to be done throughout Entity Framework Core, so we can see it from there. But when it comes from actually building the database and assessing it, it's all going to be basically we have done it all of it right now through that terminal. So how do we exit from this? So it's very simple. All we need to do is just put a / and a Q, and we can see that we have exited from Postgres. If we want to log in back again, we can just put PSQL space Postgres, and we have access to it all over again. So now that I have created my database, the next step is that I want us to, if you don't have .NET already installed, please either go here and basically download .NET for macOS. So all you need to do is go to .NET.microsoft.com /en-us/download, and basically you're gonna be treated to this page. And basically, depending on which operating system you're utilizing, you can choose in order for you to download. So I'm on a Mac. What I can do is basically I can just utilize the download the .NET SDK from here. It's either gonna be if you're on Intel, you need to download the x64, or if you're on the Apple chip, you need to download the ARM64. Another way, if we're going to be utilizing Homebrew, so let's go to Google again and we put .NET install Homebrew, and what we can do here is we can go to the Homebrew page, and let's copy this and let's go back to our terminal and let's paste this here, and we can see that brew installed --cask.net. So what this is gonna do is basically it's gonna install the latest stable version of .NET on our machine, and that way we don't really have to worry about updating our .NET framework over and over again, because basically once I do that, it's already installed on my machine, but it's gonna tell me that it's installed because it's already installed. Let's see, yeah. So it's because it's already installed, it gave me that it's already installed. But what happens if I want to update it, or later on the .NET release the new version? All I need to do is type a brew upgrade, and basically what this does is it's gonna look for all of the different packages that exist, and basically whatever I have inside my Homebrew is gonna basically update it all for them. So for example, here it's just picked up that my AWS CLI is outdated, so it's updating it for me to the latest version. So because I have already done this for .NET and it's already on the latest version, it's not gonna pick it up. But if you don't want to go with the Homebrew route, it's very easy for you to just go to this URL and download it. It's a similar thing. The reason I prefer Homebrew is because it's much more easy for me to keep my SDKs updated to the latest version, because it's basically automatically done for me through Homebrew. Okay, great. So once I have done that, the next step is I want to verify which type of .NET that I currently have, or which version. So I need to type .NET -- version, and once I put that, I can see that I have the latest version, which is 6.0.400. And once I make sure that my .NET is installed and it's working, the next step for me is I want to create my application. Or before we create the application, let us go to, actually let's create our application and then we'll decide on the tables. So let's navigate to the desktop, put work in progress. So I have a folder called .NET, and there I'm gonna create a new application. I'm gonna put .NET new web API, and I'm gonna give it Postgres DB. Just an example of that. We can call it whatever we want. So now that .NET is working, it's basically creating the application for me. We can see it has been completed successfully. So the next step is I want to install some tools, and basically those tools are going to help .NET run and basically utilize Entity Framework within my application. So the tool that I'm going to be installing is not directly related to this project. It's going to be available for any .NET project that I'm going to be utilizing, and this tool, it's going to be called the Entity Framework tool. So how can I do that? We're going to put .NET tool install -- global, so it's available for any .NET project that I have. I'm just going to put .NET -ef. Let me make this bigger so we can see it all in one line. So here we can see .NET tool install -- global .NET -ef. So here it needs without the space, and it's already installed on my machine, so it's going to tell me that it's already installed, but for you it might take a few minutes to install. And once that is done, basically what we did is we installed a Postgres database, which is really important. We have installed the SDK, which is .NET, and we installed the tool for .NET, which will allow us to communicate between our .NET application and the database. So once that all of is done, let's see, what do I have here. Let me go to the Postgres DB folder, and let's open it in Visual Studio Code. Perfect. Now that it's open inside Visual Studio Code, let me close this and let me make this bigger. So preferences, settings, and let me change this, and I'll make the font up to 36 and 36. So that way I think it should be visible by now. Let me take a look at the screen. Yes, now it should be visible. Perfect. So now basically if you take a look here, what I have is basically I have my folder structure. Let me see if I can zoom in a bit. Yes. If I take a look at my folder structure, you can see it's a normal .NET application, and basically inside this normal .NET application, I have basically .NET 6. So I only have program.cs. I don't have the startup class anymore, and I have some miscellaneous stuff, which is the weather forecast. We don't really need it, which is automatically provided for me by the .NET SDK when I created my API. So in order for me to continue, I'm just gonna do some cleanup here. So let me delete this. I don't really need it. Yes, delete, move to trash. Controller, I don't really need this controller right now, so let me delete it, or let's make this a bit smaller. It's too big. Yeah, it's a bit better like this. So let's leave this here, and let's delete it. We don't really need it, so bye, delete. Okay, great. So now that we have cleaned up our application a bit, the next step is what we need to do is we need to install some packages. So let's open our terminal inside Visual Studio Code, and let's install some of the packages. And those packages basically will allow us to connect our application to Postgres. So the first package that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put .NET add package. Is going to be npq mpsql, and it's going to be, sorry, I think it's mpg sql dot entity framework core .postgres. Let's try this. I think this is it. Okay, perfect. So now that I have installed my first package, the second one is going to be .NET add package. It's going to be Microsoft .entity framework core .design. Perfect. And then I'm gonna put .NET add package Microsoft.entity framework core.tools. Perfect. So now that I have installed my 3 packages, what I can do is I need to verify that they have been installed successfully. And in order for me to do that, it's very simple. All I need to do is I need to go to postgres.db.csproj, and basically if I come here under item group, I can see that my 3, let me make this a bit smaller again. I can see that my 3 packages has been installed. So the first one is going to be the design, the tools, and the Postgres, and all of them basically should be on their latest version, which is exactly what I wanted. So once that is done, the next step is I need to create a connection string, and basically this connection string is gonna allow me to connect to my application through the it's gonna allow me to connect to my database through my web API. So how can I create this? All I need to do is after allowed host, I'm gonna put a comma, and I'm gonna create a quotations, and inside this quotation I'm gonna put connection strings, and there I'm gonna put sample db connection, and then here I'm gonna set up my connection string. So this is where I put my connection string section, and this is the specific connection string that I want to add, and here I actually put the information for my connection string, and it's gonna be basically user space ID equal. So if we take a look back at my terminal, we can see that the user that I have created is called Muhammad admin. So that's the user that I want. So let me copy this and I'll put them here, Muhammad admin. And then the next thing that I need to do is I need to provide the password, which is gonna be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. And then what I need to do is I need to specify the server location, because as we said, this is gonna be a Postgres, so the server location and the port number is gonna be different so than any normal, and from SQL Server, from MySQL, so it's gonna be completely different. So how can I do that? Basically, I need to add first a server, then I need to add the port, and then I need to add the type of security. So let's do this right now. So here we're gonna have to put server equal localhost, and then I'm gonna specify the port, and it's gonna be, I think it's 5432. And then I need to specify the database name. So if you remember that we have created a new database, and this database, I think we called it sample f1db. So let us check that. So let us double check. So if we go back here, and we can see it's called sample f1db. So let's use that. And here let's add it. So it's gonna be database equal the name of the database, sample f1db. Then we need to specify the integrated security equal true, and lastly we need to specify the pooling equal true. Again, all of this source code is gonna be available in the description down below. So please, it's gonna be hosted on GitHub. So go please check the GitHub link, and you'll be able to find it there. So once we have done that, the next step is basically, before we delve any further, let us decide on what do we need to build, and let us draw our database tables. So let's go back to our web browser, and basically we're gonna go to draw.io. And in essence, draw.io will give us like a generic tables when we created this. So let us change these so we'll actually reflect what we need to build. So basically we're gonna be building 3 tables. The first one is gonna be team. So that's gonna be representing a Formula 1 team. The second one is gonna represent the drivers. And then the third table is gonna represent some kind of image of, I don't want to say image, maybe, a media of some sort for the driver. So let's add this right now. Actually, without using this, let us see how we can create it from here. Let's see, under advanced. yeah, I think this is better to utilize something like this. So we're gonna have a team table, and we're gonna have a driver table, and basically what else should we be? I think we're gonna have a media. Table. Okay, we're gonna have 3 tables, and now let's see how are we gonna be able to connect these and what information will live inside of these tables. So basically the database that we're gonna be building is gonna contain these 3 tables as we have said, and let's see what we're gonna put inside of them. So the first one is gonna be an ID for the teams, and then we're gonna specify the team name, which is gonna be name, and then we're gonna put the year. I don't know, maybe let's see how we can make this a bit bigger. Okay, not sure how to make this a bit bigger. Let's see. Okay, let's make this like this. Oops. I'm not sure how to make this a bit bigger. Let's see. Nope. Let's try one more thing. It's not picking up. I'm sure there is some kind of relational. Okay, let's try these tables instead. Maybe these will be able to. Let's try this. So we're gonna call it team. We're gonna have the primary key as the ID. We're gonna have name. We're gonna have year. We're gonna have, what else do you wanna put inside of this? Let's see. Let's just I think let's put these for now. Name and year. We don't really need anything else. Okay, let's delete this. We don't need this anymore. See ya. See ya. See ya. See ya. Okay, let's use this table. I like this table. Does it look good? Yeah. Okay. So let's put the other one. Let's zoom in a bit. Maybe let's make it 250. It's the lowest. 300. Okay. I think that should be fine. So as we said, we're gonna have the table of teams, and we're gonna have drivers. So their primary key is gonna be the ID, and they're gonna have a team ID, which is gonna be an foreign key. So let's make this here, and this is gonna be a foreign key because we're gonna be connecting the team and the driver. And then we're gonna have their name, and maybe we're gonna put their racing number, because every F1 driver must have a unique racing number. Okay, so now that we have this second table, the third table we're gonna be creating is, let's take another one of these, let's put them here, let's scroll a bit down, and this one here we're gonna just call it driver media. And again, this is gonna have a unique ID, which is gonna be an ID, primary key. We're gonna have a foreign key, which is gonna be linking the driver media to the driver. So foreign key, we're gonna call it the driver ID. And basically we're gonna have maybe RC media. We can make anything we want. We don't need this. So these 2 tables here, they're gonna be a one-to-many relationship. So what does this mean? What does one-to-many mean? So it means that for every single record that I have inside my team here, I could have multiple drivers. So generally, for example, one team can have 2 drivers, and let's say, and 1 backup, so that's 3 drivers. So in that case, one single team will have 3 drivers. But a driver can only have 1 team. So as we can see here, that the connection between the team and the driver is much more flexible, because a single team can have multiple drivers, but on the other hand, a driver can only have 1 team. So that's why it's called one-to-many relationship, because one subject, which is in case the team, can have many drivers, which is many entities or many objects. So we can see here one-to-many relationship. So how can we illustrate that? We're gonna basically utilize, let's see, does it give us here some lines? Oh, I don't see any lines that will allow us to do that. Oh, there's something. Okay, let's utilize these. What does it say? Okay, we can use this. Or let's see this one. Nope. Usually it has different signals. Okay, let's use this one to many. So this is the one to many, which says here we can see it has on. Let's connect this. So an ID here to the table here, and we can see here that from these signals what we can see is because this has like 3 legs connected to the driver table, it means that it is a one to many connections. So if we take a look at this and we only look at the connection that's happening between these two tables, because these two connections because these two tables have this connection type, and we can see that it has this 3 leg, it means that it's a one to many relationship. So let's see the other one, which is gonna be the one-to-one, which we're gonna explore right now. Let's see, 0 to 1, many to many. Where is the one-to-one? Optional, many to many, one-to-one. This is the one-to-one. Okay, so as we said, one single team can have multiple drivers. So that's one-to-many relationship. So what other type of relationship? It's going to be one-to-one relationship. And in this case, within this current example, every single driver, they're going to have one single profile picture of them. So for example, if you want to go to the, for example, Formula One website, let's go to that so we can explain. Formula One website. And we're going to go to the Formula One website. And let's go to the, let's remove all of the cookies because no one likes cookies. So let's eject them all. And let's zoom in a bit. And if we go to drivers and let's choose, let's take this for example. So as we can see here, every single driver have a single picture. So we can see Sir Lewis has only one picture. George has one picture, Carlos has one, Lando has one, so on and so forth. So we can see that every single driver has one picture only. And that's what the one-to-one relationship means. So every single driver, they're only going to have one profile picture. So how can we do that? It's basically very simple. If we're going to connect this, so we can see here that, let's connect it from this side. And we'll connect it here. So we can see here that because we have this icon, which is going to be like equal sign within the line and equal sign within the line, it means that it's a one-to-one relationship. And because it's one-to-one relationship, it means that every single driver will only allow to have one profile picture. On the other hand, the one-to-many relationship, it means that one team can have multiple drivers. And we can see it even here. So if we go to teams, let's see if we can actually see it, teams. And let's go to the best team, which is going to be the Mercedes team. And if we take a look at this, we can see that one single team have 2 drivers, and these drivers we can see Sir Lewis and George. So because we have these two, this relationship here, we're gonna have like one-to-many between the team and the driver, and one-to-one between the driver and their pictures, driver media. So this is basically a way for us to illustrate the different types of connection that we have within the database. And what we're gonna be doing right now is we're gonna take this a step further, and we're gonna implement these connections within Entity Framework. And basically we're gonna see how we can actually build these connections. So let's continue with that. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. And the first thing that we need to do is basically we need to create a new folder. Very exciting. So let's create a new folder. And this folder, we're gonna call it data. And inside this folder, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be creating a new class. So let's do this right now. So right click on this new C# class, and we're gonna call this the API DB context. So you might think there's first let us format this so it will reflect the .NET 6 structure. Perfect. So you might think to yourself, what is an API DB context? In essence, an API DB context, we can think about it as the brain behind the connection between our application and our database. It's going to be responsible to manage all of the mappings. It's going to be responsible to managing the tables. It's going to be responsible to do make sure that the migration or any changes that we want to do between the code and the database is reflected successfully. So we can think about it as like the brain of how everything's gonna be working when it comes to connecting our application with the database. So once we have created the class, the next thing is basically we need to inherit from the DB context class. And you might think to yourself, what is the DB context class? And in essence, the DB context class is available for us when we have installed the let's go back to our packages when we have installed the Entity Framework core tool design. So these two packages will provide us with DB context, and basically it's like a library which Microsoft has provided for us, and basically it will contain all of the logic and it will contain all of the functionalities that we're going to be utilizing in order for us to connect with that database. So and basically it will allow us to create the tables, create the connections, so on and so forth. So basically what we're doing is we're taking this code which is available for us for free from Microsoft, and we're just building on top of it so we are able to actually create this entire functionality. So once we have did this, the next step is we need to basically just create a constructor. So this constructor is going to be very simple. What we need to do is, because we have inherited from the DB context, we need to pass this any configuration that we might have for this database back to the DB context. So it will know, and it will, all of the configuration that we have, it will be automatically injected to that library that we're utilizing. So how can we do that? It's very simple. We need to put DB context options, and then we need to specify the name of the DB context, which is going to be API DB context, and then we're going to call it options. And how do we pass it to the class that we are inheriting from? We're just going to put base, and we're going to pass options. As simple as that. And now this one here, we have basically a DB context for our application. Within 2 lines of code, we just created a class and we added a constructor. Although it's empty, but at least it's a it is a DB context that we can actually utilize. So once we have done that, the next step for us, it's gonna be to actually update our program.cs, so it will be allowed or basically it will utilize the DB context for it to connect to the database, because as we know, program.cs, it will run whenever the application is starting up. And basically what we want to do is, whenever the application is booting up, we want the application to know that there's going to be a connection to the database that it needs to take into consideration. And once that connection to the database is going to be, the application is booting up, it's going to take this connection information. It's going to know what type of database it needs to connect to. It's going to see if we have any configuration inside my application to connect to this database. And once it actually figures all of this out, it's going to basically allow me to connect to it. So this is what we're going to be doing right now, basically telling the application that it needs to be knowledgeable about the API DB context that I currently have. So how do I do that? It's very simple. I need to utilize the builder, I need to utilize the services, and then I put add entity framework, and I think it's NGP, NPG SQL, and then from here I need to put add DB context. So we'll go through the exact syntax and what do they mean, and then I need to specify the DB context, which is API DB context. And then once I do that, we need to specify the options. Oops. Let's make it options. OPT. We're gonna say OPT dot
use where is it? Use npg SQL. Let's make this the U capital. We need to add those references. We'll do them right now, no worries. And then inside of this, what we need to do is we need to go to builder dot server configuration actually, and then we're gonna put get connection string, and then we're gonna specify the connection string here. Okay, and let's see, what did we call the connection string here? Let's go and we call it sample db connection. Okay, let's take this, let's put this here, let's put this on 2 different lines so we are able to see it clearly. Okay, let's put it like this so everything can fit on a single line, a single screen, sorry. So let's add this and let's add this. Okay, so let's explain what we're doing here. So first of all, what we're doing is we're utilizing the services, which is actually being loaded whenever the application is starting up. We're telling it that listen to me application, we're gonna basically utilizing entity framework with Postgres, so you need to be wary of that. So what's the application is gonna do is gonna load all of the libraries for Postgres into my application. And once it does that, then it's gonna be looking for the DB context, and I'm specifying here which DB context. An application could have multiple DB contexts, but for now we're just only going with one. So the next step is basically my application is going through the DB context, and basically it's trying to identify it, and we have specified it here. And then because whenever we are creating a DB context, where actually we have options, because let's say my application could have multiple database, one for logging, one for the actual information, another one I don't know, for some kind of like third-party service, we never know. So here, for example, what I want to do is I want to specify to which DB context I want my application to connect to, and the way I do that is basically providing the options. I have created here a lambda, and basically I'm telling this option needs to utilize the Postgres SQL, and basically we can see here that it's utilizing the npg SQL connection options, which means that it's trying to find a connection string for the Postgres DB. And what I'm doing here is I'm basically connecting or reading my connection string from the app settings. One point here that I would like to mention is never ever put the connection string inside your app settings when you try to when you do go live. For development, that's fine, but when you go live, there's different options, different solutions where you can utilize, but never ever put save your connection strings inside your app settings. It's not a secure way to host it. I just wanted to mention this out. So now that we have added this, and basically right now our application is actually running, so not running, it's basically have now a connection. Let us build and make sure that everything is building before we continue. So let us build the application. We're gonna use, first let's clear this out. And let's do .NET build. And now we can see that the application is building. And we have got build succeeded, which is exactly the results that we wanted to get. Great. So now that we have got building succeeded, the next step for us is we need to actually start building our tables. So to do that, what we're gonna be doing is inside the application here on the root folder, we're gonna create a new folder, and we're gonna call this folder, what should we call it? Let's call it models. And inside this models folder, let's create a new class. And this class, we're gonna call it base entity. So what is this base entity class? Because if we take a look, first of all, let us fix this look and feel so it will match with .NET 6. If we take a look at our web browser here, we notice that we don't have a table called base entity, but we notice that all of them will have an ID, and basically all of them will have some kind of a status, or all of them are gonna have some kind of shared information. So what we can do is we can create an ID of int, for example. We're gonna call it ID. And let's say we wanna, what else we can add to it? Let's say we can add a status. and let's put date added, for example, prop date time, call it date added, and date updated. As simple as that. Date time, we're gonna put date updated. So for example, these four parameters, what I want to do is I want them to be available for me in all tables. So instead of me copy pasting them or writing them all over again inside my tables, what I can do is, now let's create the first table, which I want to do. It's just gonna be the teams. So it's gonna be team. And instead of me rewriting them again, what I can do is I can just inherit from the base entity and they will be available for me out of the box. So I can just put like this, base entity, and basically right now my team will already have all of this available for it because I'm inheriting it. So as we said, from here, let's look what they have. Every team will have an ID, which is already provided for us by the base entity. It's gonna have name and a year. So let's add those, prop string name, and we're gonna have another prop string year. Actually, let's make it an int for the year. And let's put the default year that we are in currently is 2022. And let's give the name a default value of empty. Okay, so that's for the teams. So now let us create the other one, which is going to be the driver. So let's create a new class, driver. And also let's fix this so it will look nice. And basically the driver, let's see what's gonna have. It's gonna have team ID, name, racing number, and ID. So first of all, let's inherit from the base entity. And as we said, it's gonna have a team ID, name, and racing number. So we're gonna have prop int team ID. Every driver will have a name. So prop string name, and every driver will have a racing number, prop int, and we're gonna put as racing number. I think that should be fine. Racing number. Okay, let's give this as default values. So let's put them empty names, and for the racing number it should be 0 0. Okay, that should be fine. So right now, although we are creating the tables, we don't have any connection. The connections are gonna come next. So once we have done that, the next step is let's create the final class, and this one we're gonna call driver media. We're gonna have it as also base entity, and we're just gonna create a string called media. As simple as that. We don't really want a lot of information there, and we're gonna give it empty. Okay, so now that we have created this, we need to also connect it to a driver. So it's gonna have int, we're gonna put driver ID. Okay, so now that we have created the initial table structure, we don't really have yet the way to connect these tables together. And basically what we need to do right now is we need to create those connections and basically create the connections and the relationship between these tables. So how can we do that? It's very simple. So let's start first of all by the team. So as we said, the team, let's go back to the diagram. So as we said, for the team here, we're gonna have a one-to-many relationship. So it means that the team needs to be aware of the driver's table. And this is exactly what we need to do now. So how can we make it aware? So below this, what we can do is we can put public virtual I collection of what driver, and we're gonna call drivers. I'm gonna put get and set. So here basically what we're doing is we're telling the teams that it needs to be aware of a list of drivers. We didn't reference anything yet. We're just telling it needs to be aware. And basically we need to initialize this list. And the way we do initialize it is very simple. We're just gonna put drivers equal new hash set of driver. As simple as that. We have initialized right now the list, and now basically my team when Entity Framework will look at this to create the table, it's going to see, okay, I have the team information, but I have a connection with the drivers table that I need to take into consideration. So all of that's going to basically Entity Framework will know about. So the next thing is basically, because now right now the teams already know that there's going to be a connection with the driver, I need to update the driver table so it will know that it has a connection with the teams table. So we can see it's two ways that we need to update. So I need to update the teams and the driver, so both of them will know that there's a relationship between each other. So how can I do that? It's very simple. Basically, that one, I basically told them that there's going to be a list of drivers. On the driver table, I need to tell them that there is be a team. For every driver, there's only one single team. And basically, the way I do that is I create a link between them. And the way I do that is going to put public. I'm going to put virtual. It's going to be team. I'm going to call it team. Very lazy. I'm going to put get and set. And as simple as that. I don't need to initialize it here because it's going to be null. If I don't specify anything, or if the driver does not exist, it's going to be null. So what I'm doing here is basically I am in essence telling the driver that table that you need to be aware that there is going to be a single team attached to you when you are generated, and that's why we are doing it right here. All of this right now is not full work. The API DB context is going to continue doing the work in order for us to do the connection. Right now what we're doing is we're setting up entities for dot relationship. So right now we're telling the entity that there might be a connection, one-to-many or one-to-one, which we're gonna go through the one-to-one right now. But basically what we're doing is we're just telling it that there might be a connection coming through, so we need to specify or update the entities to reflect those. So once we have done that, the next step is for the driver media. So as we said, a driver media will have a connection with a driver. So it's going to be also very simple. We're going to put prop. It's going to be virtual driver. I'm going to call it driver. Excuse me, it's going to be as simple as that. So once we have done all of that, the next step is for us to update the DB context and start creating all of those relationships, start adding the tables, and making sure everything is working as it should. Before we do that, I always like to build my code to make sure that there is no build errors. .NET build. We can see that I have a couple of warnings, which is fine, which is expected, but my build has succeeded. So now if I go to my API DB context, let us start building my context. So first things first, I need to basically tell my DB context how many tables I want to create. And basically this needs to be the same exact number of entities that I have. So I have 3 entities, driver, driver media, and team. So this is going to be the 3 things that I need to do. So let's see how we can do that. It's going to be public, public, virtual, DB set. And basically here the first one is going to be driver. I'm going to call this drivers. The second one is going to be public, virtual, DB set. It's going to be team. I don't know why it's doing that. We're going to call it teams. And the last one is going to be public, virtual, DB set. It's going to be driver media, driver media, and we're going to call it driver medias. Get and set. So let's fix those references now. Perfect. So now that basically right now, if I only do this, and I try to migrate and create the database, we're going to be basically able to see that I have 3 tables, which is great. But I want to take it a step further. I want to basically create the connection and specify the connection the way I want them between those tables. So let's see how we can do this right now. So the way that I do that is I need to create a new method which is called onModelCreating, and that method basically will be responsible to map out those tables together. It will be responsible for me to basically set the connections that I want, the one-to-many, the one-to-one connections, and maybe to put some conditions that I want there if I want to. So for example, let's say if I have one record inside one table which is connected to another one, if there is this connection, I will not be able to I will not be able to delete the first record because it has subsequent information, something like that around those lines. It's going to allow me to basically make sure that my data is much more normalized, much more structured and consistent. So let us create this method here. So it's going to be public override, because this method is available from the DB context by default. I need to override it inside my own application DB context, so I will be able to utilize it. It's not going to return anything. It's going to be called on model creating, and it's going to take the model builder, and we're just going to call it model builder. So now inside of this, what I need to do is I need to start adding all of my logic, or basically all of the connections that I want. So always the first thing is I need to, because I'm inheriting it from the DB context, so I need to basically reflect the model builder there. So I need to say base.onModelCreating. I need to pass the model builder. I need to do this. There's no way around it, because basically I'm inheriting this functionality from here, from the DB context, and basically because I'm inheriting it, I need to basically fulfill all of the condition for the onModelCreating from that DB context before I can actually start utilizing it for my own work. Let's see why it's not happy. Sorry, it needs to be protected. Apologies for that. Okay, because it's not public. Apologies for that. So let's see right now, what can I do with this? So first things first, what I want to do is I want to connect the driver to a connect the teams to the driver. That's the first thing. And then I want to connect the teams to the driver image, which is very simple. So actually, let me connect the drivers first. So let me do this. So the way I do it is I put model builder dot driver, actually dot entity, and basically I specify which entity that I want. So basically I'm telling the model builder that please look at the entity or the table which is called driver, and we need to set conditions there for that. And basically the first thing I want to connect this to is let's put the entity conditions, and let me create a lambda so I can utilize it the way I want to. And the way I do that, I just do this and I close it. So right now what I can do is I can specify multiple conditions that I want inside one single entity, which is perfect. So we're gonna put entity dot basically has one. So we're saying that every driver has only one team. So let's put it t dot team. We're telling that every driver has only one team, and we're gonna say dot with many d.drivers. So we're saying every team, every entity which only has driver, every driver has one team, but one team have multiple drivers. That's what we're doing. And then another one we specify that in case on delete, we need to restrict. So delete behavior dot restrict. So I'm not allowed to delete anything if there's a connection. That's a way we can actually protect our data. And we're gonna give this connection, this constraint name, a name. We're gonna call it foreign key underscore driver underscore team. So let's explain what's going on here. So basically what we did is we're just utilizing the model builder to specify which entity we want to actually create this for, which is right now the driver. We created basically a variable which is called entity, which will allow us to add all of the rules that we want. And for example, within this entity, we're telling it that for every driver, it has one team, but the team has many drivers. So we can see one too many. It's very simple. Has one too many. And then basically we specified this. We don't really need to specify it. I just wanted to illustrate. And then we just gave this constraint a name. So once we are reviewing the database, we can see that this is the constraint that we have, and we can actually link it to and understand what's going on. So the other one that we want to do right now is I want to basically create the one-to-one relationship. So let's put a comment here. So this is one to many. And now what we're going to be creating, oops, this is not here. This should be here. And now what we're going to put is the one-to-one. And basically it's going to be entity dot has one, and we're gonna use this. So we're gonna just driver media, so dm driver media dot driver media dot, what did we call it? Oops, we forgot to do one thing, I think. Yeah, let's see. So what we need to do here is, I think I missed one point, which is inside the drivers, we need to tell it that it needs to be aware of a driver media. So let's do this right now. So let's do public virtual driver media. We're just gonna call it the driver media. Oops, driver media, and we're gonna put get and a set, and we should save this. Perfect. Now let's go back to our API DB context and let's see here. So let's remove this and we'll put here, we're basically gonna connect a driver media, exactly what we want, and we're gonna say dot with one, and we can see here the difference. The first one has with many, the second one has with one. And here what we need to do is we need to specify it, d for driver dot driver, and basically what we can do and specify that has a foreign key, and we specify driver media, and basically we specify that it's going to be connecting on the driver ID. Let's put x dot driver ID, and that should be it. So let's see what happened here. So first of all, we have the entity, which is telling it that it has one driver media, and then we put with one. So on the first one we put with many, so because it's one-to-many relationship, but here we have one-to-one, so it has one with one. We're connecting one driver media with one driver, and then inside the foreign key, what we're doing is we're specifying under which ID it needs to connect these two, and basically here what we're doing is we're connecting these basically on the driver ID. So that's going to be the main thing. We're connecting the driver with the driver media on the driver ID. So great. One thing that we forgot to do here is we forgot to specify the foreign key on the one-to-many, which just has foreign key, and we'll specify the foreign key here on the team ID. So basically what we're doing here is we're connecting the team here. We're connecting the team with the driver based on team ID for one-to-many, and for the one-to-one, we're connecting on the driver ID. We're connecting the driver media with the driver. So after we have done all of that, let us see this implementation and let's see this database in action. So before we implement any of the code to our database, let us see the database. How is it right now? An empty database. So in order for us to do that, I'm going to be utilizing one of the Visual Studio extensions which is available for us. So inside Visual Studio Code, if you click on these three boxes with one box is trying to come in, and if inside the search, if you type Postgres SQL, the first one, and here for example you can see that I have already installed this extension, but once you see this, please click on install, and basically what this will allow you to do is basically to have like a visualizer of your database inside your Visual Studio Code. It's a really cool application. Another thing that I recommend to install is this Postgres SQL extension as well. Both of them are really good, but we're going to be utilizing this right now. So once you have installed it, what you need to do next is you need to press on your keyboard, if you're on a Mac, Command-Shift-P, so you have this drop down, and basically what you need to do is you need to type or look for Postgres SQL,
And the thing that you need to choose within this Postgres SQL is basically add a connection, which is going to be the first one. So once you click on that, it's going to ask you to specify the connection string that we currently have in order for us to connect with this database. So since it's our database on localhost, we're going to use localhost, and then we're going to have to specify the username. Mine was Muhammad admin. And then we need to specify the password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I need to specify the default port, which is fine. And I want to use a secure connection, a standard connection, because it's currently on my own local computer, on local machine. I'm going to use a standard connection. And it's asking me which database I want to see. I want to see the sample F1DB. And once I click on that, it's going to ask me what name do I want to give it. I'm going to give it the name of sample F1DB. So right now, basically, once I have installed all of this, you can see here that I have a new icon as a Postgres Explorer. And once I click on it, I can see the database that I connected to. And if I open it, I can see that it's empty. It does not contain anything, because basically my database is completely empty and does not contain any single pieces or either a table or information whatsoever. So what I'm going to be doing right now is, let's go back to our terminal. I want to actually implement all of the code that I did and basically implement my tables, my connection, all of those. So how can I do that? In order for me to do that, I need to create a migration. And a migration, it means that I'm gonna convert all of the code for my database that exists inside my application to some kind of an SQL, which basically Entity Framework will do this translation for me. And once I have this translation in place, I can actually implement it on my database. So let me see how I can do that. To do that, inside my terminal, I need to type .NET, because we are on a .NET application. I need to type EF, which stands for Entity Framework. That's the tool that is going to be responsible for creating this migration. And what do I want to do? I want to create a new migration. And I want to put an add, so .NET, then the tool Entity Framework. I want to create a migrations. I want to have a migrations, and I want to add one, so I add, and then I give it a name. I'm going to call it initial _ migration. I'm just gonna click on enter. And we can see right now what's gonna happen. The application is gonna build, and once it built, Entity Framework core is gonna take all of the information that I have, and it's gonna, from inside, for Entity Framework core, it's gonna go into my API DB context. It's gonna look for everything inside my API DB context. It's gonna create SQL based on that, and then it's gonna prepare it for me. So let me see what happened here. So now we can see it has been done, and as you can see here that I have a new folder that has been created, so it's called migration. And if I open this folder, I can see that I have the initial migration here. And if I open this initial migration file, I can see that it's connecting to a Postgres. And we can see here that basically it's creating the driver table. It's creating it as a primary key. It's giving it an ID of, and it's an integer. It's creating the date, the name, all of the information that I needed is automatically being created for me. And all of this is being created out of the box. I don't have to do anything. Entity Framework is doing all of the heavy lifting. Driver media as well is doing all of that, as well as the team. All of that has been created for me. As well, if we take a look at here, we can see that all of the connections that I have, it's automatically has been created for me as well. And Entity Framework has basically created all of this for me. Please note that this is auto-generated. I don't have to do anything. Entity Framework has done this. So if we take a look here as well, we can see that this is my tables. This is called teams. This is the annotations within my Postgres. This is basically all of the information. We can see the constraint, the primary key. Similarly here for the driver, all of the same information. We can see the primary key and the foreign key. All of this is auto-generated for me. I don't have to worry about this, similar to the media. And we can see here that the index has been created. So the good thing about this, it's also within Postgres, it creates indexes. So it will help facilitate the querying and make it way more faster. So now that I have created the migration, if we take a look back into my database and I refresh this connection, see refresh items, we can see it's still all empty. Why? Because I created the migration, but I have not implemented yet into my database. So how can I implement it into my database? It's very simple. All I need to do is .NET EF database update. And basically what this does is it takes all of the migration that exists and it will update them into my database. So right now we can see it has been done, and we can see that it ran through everything. So if I come here and I click on refresh items, we can see directly that I have my 3 tables automatically available for me. We can see that the driver medias has been created. We can see that it has a primary key, and we can see it has a foreign key. You can see all of the rest information are there. Similar to the driver, it has the primary key, the foreign key, and all of the rest of the information are there. Similar to the items, primary key, foreign key, and all of the information is there. And basically all of this is being done automatically. I don't have to worry about anything. All of this basically is coming directly out of the Postgres and Entity Framework Core. Entity Framework Core was responsible to convert my C# code that I have entered into Postgres. It has been responsible to make sure that all of the connections are there, the one-to-many and the one-to-one connection. It has been responsible to make sure that all of the tables contain all of the columns that I wanted. It has been responsible to create the primary keys and the foreign keys. It has been responsible to make sure that the data integrity exists, specifically when deleting and the cascading or all of that. So we can see that here Entity Framework Core played a major role in making sure that my data is actually consistent and is running as it should. And all I had to do is write some C# code in order for me to have a database up and running. And basically here what I have is I have all of this information available for me out of the box. But if you look very closely, you might see that there's a table here called EF migration history. So what is that? So in order for us to keep a track of all of the changes that we're doing to the database, Entity Framework will provide us with a table called Entity Framework Migration History. And inside this table, it will actually store all of the migration that has been implemented. So let's say down the line, we discover that there's some kind of bug that happened. What we can do is we can take a look at all of the migration that has been executed on this database. We can either revert back to a previous migration, we're basically discarding all of the changes after that, or we can actually have like a point in time restoration when that database is there, but that's a completely different story. But for now we need to understand that every single migration that we do on the database, Entity Framework will create a table, it will add the migration there in order for us to actually refer back to it and know exactly what migration this database have. Let's see if we can open it. So let's see, select first 1000 row. And we can see here that the first migration that we have, initial migration, has been added, and we can see that it's utilized version 6.0.8. And if this number looks familiar, if we go back to our application and if we open the postgres.db, and we can take a look that it's utilizing version 6.0.8 from the Entity Framework Core that is utilized to create all of this. So that's the reference there. So if we go back here, we can see that this migration has added for us. So let us experiment with this a bit more. So let's say for the driver, I want to create, or I want, for example, let's see, should I create a new number, or what can I do? Let's create a new column, for example. So for every driver, public string, I want to say their name, racing number, and let's say favorite color. I don't know. So how can I do this? And I want to make it empty. So right now, if we go back to my database here, and if I look at the drivers, so I select 1000, we can see that I don't have favorite colors here. So how can I add favorite colors? It's very simple. All I need to do is basically create a new migration. So I put .NET, and if you notice something, I only had to update the driver. I didn't have to go back to the API DB context because the change is only affecting this table. I'm not creating a new connection. So basically, right now, when Entity Framework is gonna go to my API DB context and scan it all, it's gonna automatically know where exactly the changes are gonna be. And it's gonna basically compare between the current version of the database and the new version. It's gonna identify that there's gonna be a new column, favorite color, which needs to be added. So again, if we wanna create a new migration, it's gonna be .NET EF migrations, add, and we're gonna call it adding color. And it's gonna build the application, it's gonna take a few seconds. Done, and now we need to apply it. So .NET EF database update. Build started. Perfect, it has been completed now. And right now, if I go back to my Postgres, if I do select the first 1000, we can see that the favorite color has been automatically created for us. And if we go back to the source code, and if I open the migration, we can see that I have adding color here as available, and we can see that is basically adding a column to the drivers table of type text with favorite color name, and default value is empty. So all of that has been created for us automatically by the Entity Framework core, and we did not have really to do anything in order for us to get there. So in essence, that's going to be the end of the video for today. So let us do a quick summary of what we have learned. So basically we learned how we can install Postgres on our machine, how we can install .NET Core, and basically from there we were able to create our first web API. Then we have added our application DB context and the connection string, and then we created the models and we created the relationships, and we have basically understood the relationship between the different tables. And this is basically an introduction video for Entity Framework Core and Postgres. There's gonna be a follow-up video where we can see how we can customize our database. We're gonna how to change the table's name, the ordering, so much more of that. But for now, it's just like an intro so you can understand how everything fits together. And I didn't want to make this video for like 2-3 hours, so it will not be boring. So I hope you benefited from this video. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. It will really help the channel. Have a great day.